Welcome. So good to see you guys. Looking forward to today's workshop. We're going to be talking all about your 2026 digital marketing plan, how you can generate more leads, more sales, more book jobs as we go into the new year. Here's the plan for today's workshop. Here's what I'll be covering. And hopefully this is in line with your expectations and with what you want to get out of today. But number one is we're going to make sure we've got clear goals and targets for the year, right? Just locked and loaded. By the end of the year, this is where we're going to be. How much revenue, how many trucks, like what's the plan? Where do we want to end up? If you don't write a goal down and if you don't put it out front and center, you're going to wind up somewhere, but it's definitely not going to be there. So we're going to spend the time to get that goal written down and captured. And then we're going to do what most people don't do with their marketing strategy, which is we're going to reverse engineer those KPIs. We're going to figure out, okay, well, if that's the goal, whatever it is, $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, $10 million, $100 million, whatever the number is, what would it take from a marketing perspective to make that a reality? So we're going to reverse engineer those KPIs and make sure we're really clear on what those things we need to track against in order to make that a reality. And then we're going to map the plan for accomplishment. Right? A lot of people say that a goal without a plan is just a dream, right? So we're going to spend the time today to put that plan in place to kind of figure out where the budget allocations need to go, to figure out like what we need to actually execute from a marketing perspective in order to get the goal that we're after. And then, like, again, we're going to break that down by goal, by budget, by channel, and by some of the most important trends. I'll spend a little bit of time talking about here in 2026, how is the industry changing and what are the key things you need to be aware of to remain relevant with your marketing going into the new year. And my biggest goal for you guys is just to set you up for massive success in 2026 and beyond. So if that sounds good, give me a yes into the chat. I know we've got a small group with us live today, but just if we can keep it engaging. Matt Foreman, good to see you, man. Thanks for being on here. All right. I put together a workbook for this session as well that you guys all have access to. This will help drive today's session. So you can get this by going to plumberseo.net/2026. We'll be kind of filling in worksheets. You'll have links. You'll have access to details in there. So if you could open that up and just type open to confirm that you've got it open. Nick on my team just dropped the link into the chat as well. Again, that's plumberseo.net/2026. It's going to open up a Google Doc, and you're just going to say make a copy. And now this is your Google Doc that you can work from and that you can execute from. Okay. Perfect. Hopefully that gave you guys enough time to get that open. I've got some really cool calculators that we've put together that are going to make it really easy for you to enter a few key variables and then be really clear. Okay, well then those are my variables. Here's what I need to do in order to bring this into reality. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. For those of you that don't know, my name is Josh Nelson. I'm the founder of Plumbing and HVAC SEO, actively involved in QSC, Nexstar, Service Roundtable, ACCA, CEO Warrior, all of those groups. Author of How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Right for plumbing and HVAC and home service companies. But I'd say more important than any of that stuff, over the last 10 years, I had the opportunity to work with some of the top plumbing, HVAC, home service companies across the country and seen a lot of them go from obscurity online to the point where they're now the dominant player in their market. Many of them seeing over $1 million in annualized revenue growth during that time period. We were just calculating this. You know, there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in the industry. 32 of our clients have been acquired since we started working with them. So what I'm teaching you today isn't going to be based on theory. It's not going to be on something I read somewhere. It's based on real world experience in the trenches, working with plumbing, HVAC, home service companies, just like you. So you're in good hands with today's workshop. And our company, Plumbing and HVAC SEO, we're on a mission to triple the sales of 1,000 plumbing, HVAC, home service companies over the next 5 years. And so doing these workshops, sharing this information is really a big part of helping us accomplish that mission. And if you're like, hey, Josh, this sounds great. I'd love to do the whole thing, but more importantly, I'd love to hire your company to just do this for me. If that's you, we'd love the opportunity to chat. We'll do a complete analysis of your current online marketing and show you exactly what you can execute in 2026. So if you want to do that, you go to plumberseo.net/schedule, plumberseo.net/schedule. Nick, thanks for dropping that in to the chat. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Let's get to work for your 2026 internet marketing plan. I wanted to start with some of the big changes and the big shifts in the industry because I think this is important to understand. I think if you're going to operate from the same playbook that you were operating with in 1990, 2000, 2010, you're going to start to fall behind. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the most important shifts that are happening. First and foremost is the growing popularity of AI, right? Artificial intelligence, whether you're talking about ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, there's a lot of these different platforms coming online right now. And this is going to impact you in a lot of ways. First of all, you should be looking at how you can leverage AI internally to be more efficient, to be more effective. But that's also going to impact where your customers are looking for your services, right? I just said 1999, right? If you went back to the 1990s, where were people looking when they needed plumbing services? Where did they look? For the most part, they would take out the yellow pages and they would flip through the yellow pages and they would call the companies from there. Fast forward to the last 10, 15 years, where do they look? Well, mostly they go to Google, right? And maybe a couple of people look on Thumbtack and Angie and all of these different places, but it's predominantly been Google. Well, I think in today's market and where we're headed over the next couple of years, that may change, right? Because a lot of people are using ChatGPT to find answers. They're asking I've got this leak in my faucet right now. What would be the best way to repair that, right? And they're getting those answers directly from ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT might say, you should probably hire a professional plumber to help you with that. They say, who would you recommend, right? And it's not huge right now, but it is picking up in popularity. And just as an example, my wife, Yesenia, is really big with using ChatGPT. She loves it. She uses it all day. She picks where she's going to get her hair done. She picks how we're going to set up events. She does a lot of stuff directly on ChatGPT. And recently, we had some termites in the house. There were some termites in the house, and she was like, "What are these termites?" She took a picture of it, and then she asked ChatGPT a couple questions conversationally. Well, a lot of people speak directly to ChatGPT. And then she came down to well, what company would you recommend, right? And ChatGPT recommended a company, and that's who we wound up eventually having to the house to do the estimate and wound up hiring. And so if you're not thinking about how you're coming up in generative search and how AI is going to impact that, that could be a big miss, just like missing Google when it first came out. So I think that's really important that you're thinking along those lines going into the new year. Number two, super important shift, change in kind of where things are headed is online scheduling. It used to be, again, we're kind of looking at the iteration over the years. Somebody needed a plumbing company. The first thing they did, went to Yellow Pages, typed the number in on their phone, and then they called the office, right? Last couple of decade or so, we're always optimized for the call, right? Somebody gets to the website, they pick up the phone, they call in. Your dispatchers are all trained to have a good conversation, to diagnose the issue, and then to schedule that out. And that's really what we've all been focused on. But today's consumer, not even this isn't maybe in the next couple of years, today's consumer would much prefer to directly schedule a time on your website and be able to say, okay, I've got this plumbing problem or I've got this HVAC problem. I know I need someone to come out to the house. They don't want to call and have a conversation. They want to be able to say, okay, the website says I can pick tomorrow at 2:00 and someone's going to come. I can press submit, enter my address, and be done with it. That's what your customer wants, right? Today's customer is used to getting their groceries delivered directly to their house without having to go to the grocery store. They're used to, getting food from their favorite restaurant picked up and delivered to their house without having to go to that restaurant. They don't want to have to call in and go through hoops. And so if you aren't offering online scheduling on your website, or at least a tentative, hey, pick a hypothetical time, you're going to be missing out on a lot of conversion opportunities. You're going to hit the back button. They're going to go to your competitor who has online scheduling, and they're going to book directly there. So don't sleep on online scheduling. Number three is two-way text messaging, right? Definitely have the ability to schedule online, but also there's a portion of your customer base that would love to just have a two-way text. If they can't call in and talk to somebody, or if they had the option to call or text, they would definitely choose to text. So having a chat widget on your website that says text us or text me feels very conversational. You can use AI on the back end of that to ask them what their name is and ask them what their address is and ask them what the problem is and say, hey, we've got someone available today at 3 o'clock. Do you want us to go ahead and pencil that in? You can do a lot of it and eliminate a lot of the friction that's involved in your scheduling process today. But if you don't have text-enabled function on your website, that's costing you conversions, costing you opportunities. And then number 4, big trend is leveraging AI. And I kind of let the cat out of the bag on that one a little bit. But if right now somebody's got to call your office and then somebody's got to answer the phone, there has to be, that one person or that pool of dispatchers that are available to answer the call. You're completely reliant on manual labor. You're probably not going to be able to follow up with your leads as quickly as you could. And you're probably not going to follow up as frequently on the unconverted opportunities. And right now, artificial intelligence exists where they can start that conversation. They can follow up with that lead. They can even answer the phone and have a conversation with your prospect. That's still kind of like not 100% there, but definitely the two-way text messaging automation is there. If you're not leveraging AI in your follow-up and conversion process, you're going to be at a disadvantage versus the competition. So that's a really important trend that's active right now. And then number 5, and this will be the last trend I'm going to talk about before we get into it, is authentic video content is going to be the biggest differentiator in your marketplace. Because we talked a lot about AI. We talked about the ability to just generate text content like never before. So your competition can spin up all kinds of content, all kinds of blogs, all kinds of Q&A content. And the internet is going to get so flooded with information that it's going to be hard to figure out like who's a contractor that knows what they're doing, that's trustworthy, that's worth spending time with. And in today's market, yeah, you can do some AI video, but it's not as easy to do as it is with text. And so you or your technician can show up on camera and talk about why you serve the area, what your unique selling proposition is, why somebody should choose you versus the competition, kind of what's special about your plumbing, HVAC, home service company. That's going to stand out in the marketplace versus just text-based content. So just some trends there that I wanted to make sure I planted in your mind as you start thinking about 2026 and where things are headed and how you're going to evolve your digital marketing strategy to make sure you're on the cutting edge and that you're positioned to win, not just in 2026, but in the years ahead as well. So let's transition now to setting some clear goals, to setting some clear targets for 2026. I'm a big fan of Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy, of course, wrote a lot of books over the years, but one of the books that I really love of his is The Ultimate Goal Setting Guide by Brian Tracy. And it's like a thick book, like lots of information in there. But one of the main things that I really love from that book, yes, it's a goal setting framework and there's a process around it. But they asked some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And they said, like, why are you so successful? Like, what is it that's made you stand out? And the basic gist was success is goals, all else is commentary. Right? Like we all run these businesses and we're hiring technicians and we're dealing with customers and we're doing all the stuff we have to do. We get busy, right? We get busy in minutia. We get busy in commentary. But if you want to succeed, if you want to have consistent momentum, if you want to be constantly leveling up in your business, you've got to have clear goals, right? And the team needs to be aligned around those goals. And when you're the type of owner that says, okay, I'm going to set the goals, I'm going to hold the team accountable, I'm going to put tracking mechanisms in place, you set yourself up for success. And so, it's almost like if you go into 2026 and you don't have a clear goal, you don't have a clear target, and it's not written down and the whole team isn't aligned around it, you're almost like this boat out at sea, right? You're moving, right? And you're going somewhere, but it's probably not where you want to go. And it's probably not where you could go if you were just intentional. And having the clear goal, having a clear target, having it written down gives you the ability to create the momentum and to really drive yourself into the direction that you inevitably want to go and that you inevitably want to wind up at. And so, again, for those of you that logged in a little bit late, there's a workbook we're going to get into now. This is going to be more of a workshop style session, less than a teach session. But if you go to plumberseo.net/2026, that's where you can access the workbook, and I'll be kind of walking you through some of these exercises here in a minute. So first and foremost, we got to capture where we're at. Starting 2026, what's the current lay of the land? And so on page 3 in your workbook, I want you guys to all open this up on a separate tab in Google Drive, and just answer these questions. What's the average monthly revenue in your business right now? If you look back over 2025, what's the typical monthly revenue? How many jobs are you running per month on average? This is a number you should have quick access to. A couple other metrics I want you to key in. Average ticket. So what's the average transaction value when you get into a home? Average conversion in the field, which is like a lead comes into your office and somebody's interested in your services. What percentage of those are converting into a booked sale? What's your conversion rate from a lead to a job? And then how many trucks do we have right now? So I'm just going to give you guys, let's just do like 30 seconds. This isn't a long exercise. This should give you guys all enough time to get the workbook open, go to page 3 and pull this data up, enter it in, and this would be a great place for us to start. Okay. Hopefully that was enough time for you guys to get all of that entered. So the next thing I want you to do, and hopefully you guys can see my screen here well enough, page 3, kind of directly under that section, is to call your shot. So where do we want to be by the end of 2026? Let's write down a number. Let's call the shot. Let's put it on paper. Where do we want to be? How much revenue do you anticipate generating in 2026? What's the goal? Where do you want to be in terms of trucks by the end of the year? Some of us, that's an aspirational number. We want to add trucks. Some of us, it's not. If not, don't even write that number. And then third, and this is probably the most overlooked and probably most important, is why. So why is getting to that level? Like if you're in $1 million, you want to go to 2. If you're at 2 and you want to go to 5, why? I just want to give you guys a minute to write a quick paragraph. Like here's the goal, and this is why I want that. That's different for all of us. Maybe it's so you can make more money. Maybe it's so you can buy a bigger house. Maybe it's so that you can retire your spouse. Maybe it's whatever it is for you. Maybe you can buy that car, that really fancy car that you've always wanted. Who knows, right? So just real quick, I want you guys all to do that and really spend a little bit of time thinking about why, because it's the why that's going to create the energy behind actually going out and making that goal happen. Okay. All right. Hopefully we got that in, right? Like mission 1 accomplished, right? Let's call our shot. Let's call the goal. Let's put it down on paper. The next thing I want to do is I want to give you guys some tools and a really easy process to reverse engineer like what the KPIs are to bring that into reality. And so I'm going to have you pull up on a separate tab here. I want you to pull up calculator.plumbersco.net, calculator.plumbersco.net. And Nick just put it into the chat. So if you're on with me live, you can actually, if you're in the Zoom room with me now, you can actually just click that link. It's right there. And I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to walk you guys through this. All right. So this is the calculator. Well, I used to do this with spreadsheets with the group, and we did this every year. And, it was like some people didn't understand how to interact in the spreadsheet. It was like a little bit confusing. I'm excited to roll this out. I think this is something that makes it really easy for you to figure this out. And so I've got some hypothetical numbers in here. I want you to put your numbers in based on your real situation. We're going to start with annual revenue target for 2026. And let's just say your target for this year is 2.5 million. Let's just say that's the goal. I'm in the wrong tab. You want to be over here in the lead target. There's 2 tabs. I want to be in the lead target planner. So let's go 2.5. Let me make sure I get the right amount of zeros. That's 250. All right. So 2.5 million. That's the first thing I want you to enter. And then the other number, like we had you figure out, was what's your average transaction value? Like you take all the jobs you did last year or last month and you divide that by the revenue. That'll tell you what your average transaction value is. If anybody wants to drop into the chat what there is, that would be great. But let's just say you're 750, right? Let's just say we have $750 average transaction value. This helps us figure out two things. Number one, if the goal is 2.5 million, how does that break down monthly? Hard to look at an annual goal, much easier to break that down into monthly. So that means our target per month, and I know some of us has seasonality and, but for the most part, we're going to be shooting for $208,000 in monthly booked revenue, right? That's the goal. And then if our average transaction value is 750, we need about 278 jobs per month to hit the goal, right? Simple math. Sometimes we don't kind of reverse engineer these numbers, and our marketing strategy isn't as clear because we don't know what we're shooting for. Clearer you can make the target, the more likely you can create the plan to make it happen. The next thing we want to do then is, now we know what the monthly target is. We know what the job number is. Now we need to figure out, okay, well then how many leads do we need to generate through our marketing, whether it's our SEO or paid search or truck ads or whatever marketing we're doing, how many leads do we need in order to make that happen? And so that's where we're just going to put in what our conversion rate from a lead to a sale is, right? And hopefully you track this number, whether you're using ServiceTitan or Field Edge or one of these other platforms. This is a number that you definitely want to know. And so put that number in. And if you don't know, probably put in like 30%. But if you track it, I want you to put the actual number in here. So let's just say your average conversion rate is 35%. I'm just going to use that number. This will tell us now very clearly how many leads we need to shoot for every single month in order to get to that number of jobs, in order to get to that amount of revenue. And so in this case, we need 794 leads per month based on that 35% close ratio to get to 278 jobs per month, to get to 208,000 in revenue per month, to get to our $2.5 million in revenue for the year. Hopefully that's clear. Hopefully that's super helpful, because now you've got a number that you can work towards. You can say, all right, here's the goal, here's the KPI. Let's reverse engineer our marketing strategy now to generate that amount of leads. And we can track against it and be like, okay, how many leads do we actually get? How much do we actually convert? Are we on track or are we off track? And we can shift and we can adjust towards the accomplishment of the goal. I think the other thing that's kind of interesting as you look at this, you start to realize, well, wow, if we can increase our average transaction value, that changes the dynamic quite a bit, right? If we can train the sales team or the team in the field to be a little more efficient and to, sell the home plan and sell the upgrade and bring that to 950, well, now we need a lot less leads in order to hit our target. We can make it more effective. If we can improve our conversion rate from a lead to a book job, maybe by implementing marketing automation, maybe by offering online scheduling, maybe by just doing better confirmations before the appointment. Let's say we increase that to 55%. Now we only need 399 leads. So hopefully this is helpful. It's a good exercise as you go in to start this year to really get clear. Here's the goal. Here's how it breaks down. Here's the KPI that we're shooting for. And so what I want you to do is in your workbook is I want you to write those numbers down for yourself. So this is on page 4 in your workbook. Based on the numbers you entered, what's the revenue for the year? How many jobs per month? And how many leads are you going to need per month in order to make that a reality? I'll give you guys a quick sec. We're here to work, right? We're here to make decisions. We're here to get clarity. So I want you guys to do that right now. All right. All right, great work, everybody. Hopefully we've got the number. Now we've reversed engineered the KPI. The next thing is we're going to do is we just want to figure out the budget, right? Because a lot of times We don't know what to spend. Maybe we're overspending. Maybe we're massively underspending. Let's get clear on how much we would actually need to invest in marketing to make that a reality. And then, how we should allocate that budget. This is the work that most of us never get around to doing that can make a massive difference. So let me get back here and share my screen, and we're going to go into that same lead generation planner. And now we're just going to shift over to the budget planner. So we're going to, up at the top here, you've got a link that says lead target planner, and we've got the budget planner. In the budget planner, I want you to do the same thing. I'm going to go into let's say what the goal is for the year. So let's just say it's 2.5 million. Again, using that same round number. Now, the question is, how much are you going to invest in marketing? How much are you investing in order to bring that into reality? And the data tells us that to kind of stay where you're at, you're going to want to invest between 1 to 5% of your revenue back to marketing. So if you're investing 1 to 5%, that's okay, I want to stay pretty much where I'm at. If you're kind of more in a moderate growth phase, you're okay, I want to get some level of growth that's going to be between 6 and 10%. And then if you want to be accelerated growth, where there's significant momentum, it needs to be more 11 to 15%. And, if the goal is to go from $1 million to $2 million, then keeping the budget at whatever it was last year probably isn't going to cut it, right? As you grow, you need to create more rocket fuel. You got to give yourself the gasoline to get those outcomes. Let's just pick what amount you're willing to reinvest back in the market. Let's just say it's 10%. That'll tell us, okay, based on that, we've got a $250,000 budget that we can allocate towards marketing, which breaks down to $20,000 per month that we can put into the marketing strategy. Hopefully that's clear. Everybody, get clear what that number is for you. And maybe it's more than you're thinking. And maybe you got to get back with the accountant and be hey, you know what? I want to grow. I think I need to increase our spend in advertising a little bit. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not asking you to invest in marketing in a vacuum, right? You should be able to spend these dollars. You should be able to see a tangible return on that money to hit the goals that you're shooting for. From there, we can think about allocations. I think it's important to spend a little bit of time thinking about allocation because here we are, talking about your digital marketing plan, but you should never be exclusively advertising just in online, right? I think we have some online, some offline, some back to our repeat and referral business. So typically we're going to do a 50, 30, 20 split. But it's going to be different, based on your unique situation and what's going on. But let's just say in this particular case, we're going to do 70% towards online because we're really bullish on online and AI, kind of making sure we're on the front end of that. We're going to do 20% to offline. So that's going to be, billboard ads, print ads, different offline advertising that you might want to do, direct mail. But we do want to spend at least some to our existing client base. Right? The cheapest client to attract is your existing customer. And so we want to be marketing back to that existing customer to get back into the home, to get referrals. And so this might be a little aggressive, right? 10%, you could probably get away with 5% here. Maybe go 25% to offline. And that gets you a good even mix. But this, I find this exercise done at the beginning of the year, you can get really strategic. Here's the goal. Here's how much I can invest in marketing. Here's how I want to carve that on to online versus offline to the different channels. And then when it comes to online, you've got SEO, which is organic. You've got paid search, which is going to be local service ads, Google ads, things like that. And then you've got display and remarketing. And again, it's going to depend upon how strong you are currently in your marketplace. And so there's other variables. But if you'd like, we can do a complete analysis for you on this. And that we'll pull up your current online marketing strategy. We'll sit down with you and figure out what that goal is for the year. And it help you map this allocation to the weaknesses and to kind of what you need to do in order to bring that into reality. So we do that for free, especially for those of you that attend these workshops live. Nick, if you could drop the link, if you'd like to have me and my team kind of build this out with you and help you map this to your exact situation, you can schedule by going to plumberseo.net/schedule. So let's just say we're going to do 30% of that budget towards SEO, and we're going to do 40% of that towards paid, which is LSA and things. And then let's go 10% to display advertising or remarketing. Let's put this up to 50. And we could go, let's say we go to 60. So in this case, we'd be doing like 4,300 going towards organic strategies, like building out the content, building the links, building the citations. We'd have about 8,750 going towards paid advertising, and then about $1,500 to retarget and remain top of mind with that existing customer base and those people that haven't converted yet. Depending upon your situation, getting to that $2.5 million level, this would probably be a pretty good allocation of those funds. So hopefully that's helpful and kind of gets you thinking. We don't want to just set a goal arbitrary, right? It'd be like, okay, I want to get to 2.5 million this year. We want to set a goal. We want to reverse engineer it and figure, okay, like, all right, if that's the goal, how does that break down? How many leads do we need to generate in order to make it happen? And then from there, well, how much money do we have to play with that we can invest in order to make that an outcome? And then how do we want to deploy those resources? How do we want to deploy those dollars? And really, that's what I want to get into next. I want to talk a little bit about the marketing strategy and really like, what do we want to put in place here in 2025 to be as aggressive, to be as effective as possible in our marketing approach and really bringing those goals into reality. And so there's really 3 key pillars that we execute and that I believe are the key drivers of success for plumbing, HVAC, electrical, home service contractors. Number 1, so we have to drive leads. Yes, obviously we've got to get those leads, the phone calls, the online submissions, the web chats, we've got to drive leads, but we also have to maximize conversion, right? Just generating leads in a vacuum is only going to get us so far. We have to have strategies behind that. How do we convert the visitor into an inquiry? How do we convert the inquiry into a booked job? How do we convert the booked job into a repeat customer that uses us again and again? And then ultimately, how do we get that customer to become an advocate that refers us to others? Like lots of things we have to focus on to maximize conversion. And then we've got to optimize the results because there's so many different ways we can market: online, offline, organic, paid. Let's figure out with tracking which mechanism is generating the best result, the lowest cost per lead, or the highest return on investment, and then really shift the funds, shift the strategy accordingly so that we can double down on what's working best. And so when it comes to driving leads, even in today's marketplace, we want to start with organic, right? Which organic is the non-paid traffic that we can tap into, the non-paid. We're not paying per click. We're not paying per lead. We're coming up in the free area on the results. And so going into 26, you might be thinking, does SEO even still matter? Is this even like a thing I should be thinking about? Or should I just be doing LSA? Or should I just be doing these other paid strategies? And what I can tell you is when we search right now, let's just say we type in Denver plumber. Yes, local service ads comes up at top. That's the first and foremost listing that's coming up. Below that, we've got the map, and then we've got the organic results. Even in today's market, 71% of the clicks are going directly to the map and the organic results. Despite the way that the results have shifted, despite the fact that Google's prioritizing paid ads and local service ads, there's still a lion's share going to organic traffic, and the 67% go on the first 5 listings. And this was a study done by Moz and a couple other companies. And so a good example of this is one of the companies we've had the opportunity to work with over the last, 9 years now, which is Meridian Advantage, full service plumbing, HVAC electrical contractor based in East Lansing, Michigan. And if you search, they're in East Lansing, you search like East Lansing plumber, plumbing, drain cleaning, water heater repair, AC repair, HVAC installation, they come up really well in the non-paid results. Like we prioritize making sure they're coming up in the map, they're coming up in the organic results, typically in the first couple of results for most of those keywords. And really what I want you to see is tracking wise, and this is, as we think about optimization, we need to know these numbers. How much did we invest? So in their case, $8,000 invested in our services plus Google ads, retargeting, and we track 417 leads on a typical month. So that's a monthly 417 leads coming in from the the paid online advertising and the organic online advertising. If you divide that out, that's $19.32 per lead. Not bad, right? Very manageable in these services. But really where this gets interesting is if we drill down, I would say, okay, well, where are those leads coming from? So 95 came from organic. So that's somebody that got to the website, they didn't click on a paid ad, they just went straight to the organic page and called the number. 127 came from pay-per-click, so that means they clicked on one of those paid ads and they called in. 173 came from the Google map listing directly. So that means they saw the result on Google and they called it, right? So we were going to lump that in with SEO. And then 22 people filled in the form on their site. So I want to call your attention to the organic and the Google map result there. That's 65% of those leads that came directly from organic. Yes, SEO still matters. Yes, making sure you're coming up in those non-paid listings can drive lots of high quality leads at a very low cost per lead. What about AEO, right? Like how many of you guys are like hearing terms like AEO, GEO, AEO being like answer engine optimization, GEO being generative engine optimization. AEO would be trying to optimize, like technically term wise, trying to optimize for the answer engines, which would be Google Voice, Alexa, things like that. Generative engine optimization would be the more, like on paper, would be the more current term, which is my Alexa device and the Alexa stop. ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity, people actually searching on those platforms and coming up. I like to say in today's market, it's call it what you want. Search everywhere optimization is what you want to do. But you can optimize by having properly set up website, by having proper content, by having proper schema to come up in the generative engines. And so, in this case, if we go to ChatGPT and we search best Fargo, North Dakota plumber, a map populates, right? There literally, ChatGPT gives you a map. Here's the companies that are in that market. And if you're properly optimized, you can be among the recommended companies. And so one of the companies we work with is Laney's, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. And you can see they come up right there in the map results. We've spent a lot of time on this. I think that this is really where things are headed in terms of search engine optimization, search everywhere optimization. Your customers looking on these generative engines and bypassing Google or bypassing Bing. And so if you're curious to see how you come up for the most important key terms in your area on generative engines, go to visibilityreport.ai. Nick, if you could drop that link into the chat. It'll ask you to type in your website. It'll ask you to a couple of different things. You do need to use at your domain email so we can protect ourselves from people using this outside of its intended purpose. And it will show you exactly how you're coming up for the most important terms. And if you really want us to do a deep analysis of this, we'll be glad to do it for you. But this will show you, here's how you're coming up on OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, and give you an indication like, hey, you're doing well, or hey, there's a big gap here. And there's very specific things you can do in order to make sure you come up in these types of searches. Now, I will say the caveat to this is that in today's market, 2016, this is important, but it's not going to be a massive differentiator in terms of the number of leads that you get. The lion's share of searches right now are still going directly to Google. Most of the lead volume is still happening on Google, but there's a percentage, a little bit happening over on ChatGPT. And I think that percentage is going to continue to grow over the next couple of years. And so you want to be on the front end of it and not falling behind and missing out on a big opportunity on that front. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail on SEO strategy. Today's really about the big picture plan, but there are very specific things you can do with your website, with the way the content is structured, with the way that you link both on the site and off the site that will massively impact how you come up in the results. And keywords still matter, right? Understanding what your customers are typing when they need your services and making sure that you're optimizing the content on your website around those keywords combined with the cities that you operate in. We do have a great list of keywords that we can provide you with for plumbing and for HVAC. But I'd say like the best thing you can do if you really want, what I'll do is I'll give you the entire keyword list, and our team will actually combine it with your city. So we'll figure out like, okay, here's the services you provide. Here's the cities that you operate in. We'll run it through our ranking tools to figure out where you're coming up on Google and Bing, as well as on the AI results, and give you complete visibility. Here's the most important keywords. Here's how you're showing up. And here's the delta. Like, here's what's missing from an SEO perspective that's preventing you from showing up in those results. And here's what that's costing you in terms of lead flow every single month. It's hard for me to give that like in a group environment like this, but no cost. We'll run all of that data for you. If you'd like to take me up on that, you can just go to plumberseo.net/schedule, plumberseo.net/schedule. Pick a time that works for you. We'll do this due diligence. No pressure, right? Like after we had that conversation and you're crushing it, you're happy where you're at, you'll walk away with great data. Obviously, if you'd like some help and you're like, hey, Josh, I'd love for your team to do an analysis. And if there's an opportunity, explain to me how we can work together and execute this for you. Part of that would be, we'll kind of show you, here's what it would look like to have us implement this on your behalf, but no pressure on that front. So a really good example of this is one of the companies we work with is Bud's Plumbing, and they're in Evansville, Indiana. And you can see if you can type in Evansville plumber, plumbing, drain cleaning, water heater repair, they come up really dominant in the organic listings and on the map results. Also, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it, hey, I'm looking for an Evansville plumber, who would you recommend? Or a plumber in Evansville, Indiana, the number one result is Bud's Plumbing. So the strategies that we've deployed in terms of how we've structured their website, how we've structured the microformat data, the way we've built the authority for them in their local marketplace has them dominant, not just on Google, but also in the generative engines like ChatGPT. And I want you to see here, like, this is the data, and I'll come back because, sometimes it's good to hear how it works, but other times it's good to see, like, here's an example of how that plays out. Here's their total investment in online marketing, right? We track this very closely, $13,535. That's our management fees plus what's going to paid search. 828 leads tracked per month. Divide that up to about $16.35 per lead. 455 coming directly from organic results. This can have a huge impact. That's why we got to start with making sure we're coming up in the organic results. And that's why I want that to be a key piece of what you're doing going into 2026. Second to that is paid search. And we can't just rely on organic. We got to make sure we're spending some money to create the type of velocity and the type of opportunity that we want. And when I think about paid search for your plumbing, HVAC, electrical company, organic, I think, is the foundation. We're going to have a good website that's properly optimized. It's coming up in the non-paid results. Up from there, we should be starting with the most directional opportunity, which is somebody going to Google and searching for what we do. And that really applies in two areas, Google ads and local service ads. And I'd say in today's market, the quality and the ROI from local service ads is probably best. So you want to take that budget for local service ads, whatever your paid spend budget is, and optimize as much as you can on local service ads. Because if you've got that dialed in, and if you've got somebody like us managing it for you and helping to make sure you're closing the loop on all the leads and you're really properly optimizing your profile, you can get a great return, low cost per lead, high quality return on investment from local service ads. So I would start there. Like, that would be the foundation of whatever you're doing to market yourself. And before you spend another dollar in other advertising, two things you want to put in place. Retargeting, which is just pixeling everyone that gets to your website so that they're going to see your advertisement. They're going to see your brand on other places while they're still potentially in the buying phase, especially if they were shopping for a water heater or a new system installation. Most people will be in a browse phase for 30 to 90 days. And so we want to make sure if they got to your website, they're going to start to see your ads so that during that buying phase, they see you again and again. They're more likely to convert. So before we invest in other things, we want to make sure we've got retargeting in place, but we've also got automation in place. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but don't spend a lot of money on paid ads and other things if you're not going to have some automation to follow up quickly with the opportunities, to get them booked in, and to follow up more than once over time. because otherwise your conversions aren't going to be where you need them to be. And so then up from there, we think about paid advertising. There's paid directories and pay per lead services, eLocal, Angie. I know, hate them or love them, Thumbtack. There are people that use those platforms to find contractors. And if you follow up with those leads quickly, you can still monetize them. I wouldn't prioritize it before these other channels, but if you're not getting the lead flow that you need to hit the sales target, it's definitely something you can activate to generate more volume and more deal flow in your company. And then I really think paid directories come in play on a case-by-case basis. So whatever market you're in, let's just say you're in Denver. If I go to Denver right now and I type in Denver plumbing services, and I explore the first page on Google, and we kind of see like what's coming up. Obviously, there's local service ads. Obviously, there's going to be a map. But the first couple of organic results in different markets, sometimes it's Yelp.com, sometimes it's Angie, sometimes it's Thumbtack, sometimes it's only companies. If in your market, the most important keywords, they're spawning a result for Yelp or they're spawning a result for Angie, those are the cases where there might be a good case to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to invest in a paid result or a paid listing on those directories because it's so dominant in that market. I'm going to invest the energy to build my profile, to build my reviews there, because in certain markets, different directories can carry significant return on investment. So that's more on a case-by-case basis. And then up from there, kind of the very higher top of the hierarchy is social advertising. For plumbing, HVAC, electrical, Facebook ads, TikTok ads, YouTube ads, they can work, right? They can definitely drive brand awareness. They can definitely help you connect with people that are maybe not in an immediate buying phase, but start to catch them in the awareness phase. But it's not until you get all of these other strategies fully deployed that I recommend spending a lot of money up here. But I will say, the big company in your market, the $10 million, the $50 million company, they've graduated to where they've got the budget allocated to be the known contractor in their market. And so if your goal right now is to go from 10 million to 50 million, right, you probably can't sleep on social ads. But if now your goal is to go from 1 million to 5 million, you're probably better investing your funds in this area down here. So that's your paid strategy. I hope that makes sense. We've got local service ads, right? This is the little 4 box that comes up at the top. We've got Google ads, which is where we're picking our keywords and we're paying on a per click basis. Lots of ways that paid ads get messed up and they get done incorrectly. I don't want to take this into too much of a technical training today, but if you structure your Google ads campaign correctly, you can improve your relevancy, you can improve your conversions, you can have a lower cost per click and ultimately a lower cost per lead in the competition, and you can get a great return on investment from Google ads. And so I'll just share a quick example of this on the paid ad side of the equation. One of the companies we work with is Cardinal. They're an HVAC company. And you can see here again, going back to our tracking, $9,000 invested. This is just on paid, right? So this is just their Google ads. We track 224 leads per month for that investment. That's about $40 per lead from paid advertising, which is really, really strong in this marketplace. So if you do the math, right, 224 leads at a 40% conversion rate, that's 90 book jobs, that's $67,000 or a 7.5 time return on their investment. So yes, you can make this work. And I can share a lot of examples of home service companies, again, just in paid ads. So this is Meridian Company in East Lansing I was talking about earlier. Just on their paid advertising, $4,615 invested, 137 leads from that, $33 per lead. So when you do it right, you can get a great return on investment. It can be another great channel to accelerate the growth of your company. Retargeting really is just the little banner ads. You've all heard of this. It's not hard to set up. We're going to come up with a preset sequence of ads that can show up on Facebook. They can show up on the Google Display Network. You can start to show up on sites like ESPN and CNN. And now when your customer starts browsing the internet after they've been to your website, they start seeing your banner ads. And we bring them back into your website and we improve the probability of conversion. And then automation, I'll talk about in more depth here as we get into the next phase. So that's paid ads. And I think most of us, if you're thinking about your 2026 marketing plan, we've got organic. Yeah, I've heard of that, and I'm kind of doing that. I've kind of got that dialed in. Paid ads, I've tried it before. I've turned it on, I turned it off. I should probably spend a little bit more there. But where most of us aren't doing nearly enough is in database marketing. Every one of you have past customers, have inquired customers or prospects that never booked a job or never hired you. And there's cash in that database because you're not actively working it. And so going to 2026, I would encourage you every single month, have a reason to reach out to that unconverted customer base and that past customer base to generate book jobs and to generate revenue. And the way we do this predominantly is going to be through text messaging, right? Ideally, we've got the names and the cell phone numbers of the companies we've worked with. We can do it via email as well, but text tends to work really well. We're going to reach out, we're going to make an offer that they can easily say yes to, and they'll either reply back yes, or they'll click a button yes, and it will say, great, here's the thing, now let's schedule a call, right? And if you're creative, you can come up with a reason to reach out. Hey, we're going to be in your area, or hey, it's a new season, it's time to have somebody in the home to review this inside the system. And you can get free leads and free book jobs because you already invested in the past to get that prospect's attention. And so just a good example of this, one of the companies we work with is 72 Degrees, Carnett & Sons. They had a list of 5,000 unconverted opportunities in the past. They sent a message just like that, the one I just showed you. They had over 300 replies, 119 book jobs, $84,000 in revenue generated just by doing database marketing, doing database reactivation is the proper term for it. And so I want to pause there, right? I'm going to kind of breeze through the rest of this, but this is the meat and potatoes I wanted to cover. As you think about your organic, your paid, and your database marketing, where's the gap? Where's the opportunity? What's the thing you need to elevate going into 2026? And so on your workbook on page 5, we've got this little thing with the columns. I want you to highlight over each of these, right? You can highlight over organic and give it a red, yellow, or green label. Like you just go to filter, you go to highlight and change the highlighted color. Is it green right now? You're dominating for all the keywords. You're just coming up for everything in the organic results. Yellow, if you're like, come up for some, but I'm missing a lot of opportunities. I think there's some juice there. Red, like you're not coming up at all, right? And I want you to do that for each of these three. As a quick sec, self-assess, find the opportunity here to generate better results in 2026 to hit those goals that we're setting. Okay. Next up is we have to maximize conversion, right? We want to make sure that we can convert the traffic we get to our website into a lead, and then we got to convert the lead into a book job, and we're going to convert the customer into a repeat customer that uses us again and again. So first and foremost, the biggest conversion leak that most of you guys have is your website, right? No matter what, they're going to wind up on your website, either on their mobile phone or on the desktop. And if that website isn't built to convert, it's going to be bleeding you opportunity. And so you want to make sure that your website is set up to convert visitors into callers at the highest level possible. And so a good example of this is cardinalhvac.com. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but there's a couple of very simple things you can put in place that will massively improve your conversion rate. Number one is having online scheduling. Like give people the opportunity to soft schedule a time with your company. Otherwise, they'll hit the back button and they'll go to the competition. They'll wind up clicking around until they get that urge, that thing they need to book off. Have a phone number where they can easily call. Use personality and authenticity in your website, real pictures, real images of you and your team. There's a complete checklist in your workbook, so I'm not going to read through all the bullets, but those are the things you want to focus on. So looking at conversion and kind of the KPI that you're shooting here for how you optimize your website, this is Cardinal, $14,000 invested in online marketing with us, 1,913 leads generated per month, all divided, it's about $7.28 per lead. Really what I want you to draw your attention to is the conversion rate from a visitor to a lead. And that conversion rate's 25%. And most plumbing HVAC company websites can convert between 10 and 15%. Some worse if you got a really bad website, but when you do it right, you can get 2 to 3 times better conversion by getting these things dialed in. Another great example to pull up would be jdprecisionplumbing.com. I'm just going to hit the high points again: personality and authenticity. If you can get real pictures of the real technicians, the real team, for whatever reason, people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. They want to deal with real people. Put that front and center, not stock images, not AI-generated images, real authentic imagery. Phone number in the top right-hand corner, the ability to two-way text message, start a chat conversation, use AI behind that, and then give them the opportunity to schedule online. Their website, $14,000 invested in online marketing on a typical monthly basis, 625 leads generated. They're in Texas, a little more competitive market. Average $22.69 per lead. Conversion rate on the website, 20%. Bud's Plumbing converts at 30%. How many examples? All right, I'm going to keep going here. So, again, you've got the full checklist here. Phone number, visible and present, ability to book directly online, schedule an instant estimate, pop up that says, hey, text me now. If you don't have at least those 3 components on your website in 2026, you're going to be missing conversion opportunities. And if you don't convert, you're going to have to pay more to acquire a customer. Makes everything else really, really tough to monetize. I've got a full checklist in there. I would encourage you, as you start to think about 2026, run your website through that list. Find, like, okay, do I have this? Am I missing that? Should I create some videos? Do I need to, have those social bullets in place? And if you'd like for us to do a deep dive on this for you, like, well, we'll pull up your website and we'll say, hey, here's where there's room for improvement. Here's what looks good, and get our direct feedback. We will do that for free for your unique situation if you go to plumberseo.net/schedule. plumberseo.net/schedule. Okay, so that's conversion factor 1. We want to make sure our website is built to convert. Conversion factor 2 is your reputation. Right? How many reviews do you have? What's your average review sentiment? If you've got bad reviews or you've got not enough reviews, even if you've got great marketing, the typical customer is going to be like, okay, I kind of like Bud's Plumbing. This seems like a good company. I'm thinking about hiring them. But before they do that, they go Bud's Plumbing reviews, right? They're going to pull up the list of reviews that they see on Google, maybe Yelp, maybe Angie. And if it doesn't pass the stink test, you're not going to get the call. So you got to prioritize this. You got to focus on this. The best way to do this in today's market, obviously create a great experience. Obviously, optimize your team and train your team around this. But the best way is to have it automatically deployed after every service call. So whether you use ServiceTitan or House Call Pro or Field Edge or whatever platform, the technology exists today where, all right, you just completed, the job is finished, an email, text message goes out to the customer. Hey, thanks so much for your business. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you. We'd love it if you write us a review. And they click the link and it takes them straight into Google where they can choose the rating and type their review. If you do that, you're going to see a significant uptrend in the number of reviews that you get. One of the companies we've had the opportunity to work with kind of from its inception is Plumbing Nerds. And they're in the Naples, Bonita Springs area. And they went from being a new kid on the block not that long ago to being the dominant player in that market. They did a great job emphasizing the importance of reviews. You can see here in just a couple of years, Naples, 1.2 thousand reviews. In Bonita Springs, 1.5 thousand reviews. And I want you to see how this plays out in terms of their results and their ROI. $21,000, a big spender in terms of their marketing. 884 leads generated. That's $25.30 per lead. A great distribution. I think this is great because they've got organic, they've got paid, they've got maps. Their website converts, but a lot of it is predicated on how effective they're converting their leads and how effective their review strategy is, because when someone looks them up, they're like, wow, these guys are solid. All right. Conversion factor number 3 is automation. In today's market, if we're not leveraging automation, we're massively missing out. And so lots of ways to generate leads. We've already covered a lot of them, right? Coming up organically, doing billboard ads, advertising on Thumbtack, being active on Home Advisor, lots and lots of ways to generate leads. But if we can't convert the lead into a booked job, we're never going to be successful. And so what I found now working with hundreds and hundreds of plumbing, HVAC, home service companies, the big problem is our lack of conversion of the leads. And so we track every phone call. We have a team that listens, or we use AI now to listen to all the calls now. 50 to 60% of the inbound phone calls are being left unconverted. Like they were interested, but they didn't book. They didn't even schedule to have someone into the home. 90% of the web forms, a lot of you guys still have web forms instead of online scheduling where somebody just types in their name and the description of their thing and they hit submit. Almost 90% of those go unconverted because, let's face it, they're not being followed up with quick enough. Here's the problem. Leads that don't get followed up within 15 minutes or less go cold, right? There's too much competition. There's too many other contractors that they could work with. If they call and they don't get a live answer, if they go to the website and they submit that form and they're not talking to somebody, they're hitting the back button and they're going to the next person. So we have to be extremely fast in how we follow up. The other thing that's interesting is the average customer has to be touched 5 to 7 times before they convert. And I think if you're honest with yourself, you probably are optimized for somebody calls in, your dispatcher has the conversation. If they schedule, great. If they don't, they're never getting a call back unless they call you. And the contractors that win, they have a process where they're following up with those unconverted opportunities. In that buying window, hey, just wanted to follow up. Did you get that scheduled? Would you still like to have us come out to the home? If you can follow up 5 to 7 times, you win, right? And you're only following up 0 times, maybe once, if that. And the other really important trend is that your customer today would prefer to interact via two-way text message than a phone call. And you're not even giving them the opportunity to engage with you via text message. And so our solution for this is Conversion Amp. It's our marketing automation platform built specifically for plumbing, HVAC, and electrical contractors, where we've got this whole process dialed in. Like if somebody calls in and there's no answer, they're going to get a text message right away. Hey, sorry we missed you. Is there anything we can help you with? And then if they engage back, there's going to be some automation on the back end that's saying, hey, did you want to go ahead and schedule a time now? And pointing them directly to the online scheduling. And then if they call in and they don't convert, they get dropped into a tickler file where like automation fires, most of it's going to happen via text message because that's how people want to interact anyways. But we'll do some emails as well. We'll make some phone calls as well. If you want to check this out, we've got a great little demo of how this works in a plumbing application. You can go to conversionamp.com and test it out. Use this or something, but you need to be leveraging automation as you go into 2026 if you really want to win. I'm not going to play this video, but also you should be thinking about AI voice answering. I'm going to skip it. And with AI, if you're not answering the phone, it's going to voicemail. Come on. If it goes to voicemail, they're not going to leave a message. They're just going to move on. You can have a very conversational sounding AI that answers and says, hey, thanks for calling Bud's Plumbing. How can I help you today? And they can answer the questions and you can capture their details and you can do a soft booking right on that call. And we're finding it converts almost as well as the live dispatcher. Now, if you've got a great live team, you keep your live team, there's no replacement for live answer. But if you're going to voicemail, you should definitely put some type of automation on the back end. And so if we think about the self-assessment here on conversion going into 2026, your website, is it built to convert? Does it have those 3 conversion factors? Reputation, do you have great reviews? If you compare yourself to your biggest competitor, right, to your 3 biggest competitors, how much more online reviews do they have? That's a big factor. The separation is really important. And then automation, are you leveraging automation? Is every lead getting followed up within 3 minutes or less? Are you touching your unconverted opportunities 5 to 7 times? If not, this is a big opportunity. I want you just to kind of green if it's good, yellow if it's kind of in between, red, like that's the gold, right? Awareness precedes change. The things that are red right now for you are the opportunities that are going to help crush the goals that you set for 2026. Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to wrap this up quick, is we've got to optimize results, right? And I really don't want you to do any of the stuff that we've suggested here in the absence of really knowing your numbers and knowing your metrics. So you have to know, all right, my goal for the year is to get to whatever it is, $2.5 million. I'm going to need to invest $20,000 a month. How much did you actually spend, right? How much was actually invested in that marketing channel? Know the total spend. I've showed you a lot of examples of us doing that here at Plumbing and HVAC SEO. And again, on our marketing budget planner, sometimes you just got to spend more, right? Sometimes they're like, you got to create the extra investment to get the outcomes that you want. So maybe this is just a call to reminder you need to spend a little bit more. Number two is you've got to normalize, like, what's the average cost per lead, right? Really understand, all right, if I'm spending this much, how much is it going to cost me on a per lead basis? You have to track that number. You have to track that metric and know what that average cost per lead is within your industry. A great example of this, again, and this is probably going to be the last example, is Paul the Plumber. Great company we work with. How much did we spend this month? We can look right here, $12,000, $11,990. That's management fee plus Google ads plus whatever online advertising, $11,990. How many leads did we generate? 1,119. What was our average cost per lead? $10.85. If you don't have that level of awareness, it's very hard to continue to spend. It's very hard to increase that budget. It's very hard to really do much outside of, like, you're just kind of hoping and praying. So have a dashboard set up like this through a company like ours that can really help you drive these metrics and know the results. And then third, you got to know the ROI, right? In today's market, there's no reason we can't match the lead to the revenue generated and know, okay, was there a return on investment there? And so you can do this through projections, right? And you know, that's one way to do it. If you don't have your CRM dialed in, if you don't have everything synced up, at a minimum, you can project average conversion rate, average cost per lead, projected return on investment. But I think the gold standard in today's market is to really know down to the dollar. And so our ROI Insights report, what we can do now, whether you're using Service Titan or House Call Pro or Field Edge, we can match the leads that we're generating from marketing to the jobs that are booked inside of your dispatch platform and be able to report back not estimated, but real return on investment. So like in a case like this, we can see the Meridian Company had a $10,000 spend. They generated 789 leads. There was 518 active customers, 228 of them matched to the CRM. And so there was a $2,207 return on investment, not like a hypothetical, but down to the actual revenue that was generated in the platform. Now you have to be a little bit more sophisticated and have those platforms in place and have them set up correctly. But if you want to go to the next level and really know the ROI so that we can optimize around what's really performing, that will set you up for massive success in 2026 and something we can definitely set up for you. So last thing I want you to check in your workbook is, like, rate yourself on each of these. Total spend. Are you spending enough? Are you really tracking that number? Is it based on reality in terms of the goal versus the amount percentage allocated? Red, yellow, green. Do you know your average cost per lead? Is that being tracked down to the dollar? And then ROI, red, yellow, green. It's probably red for most of us. We know we're spending money. We know we're getting an ROI, but we don't know the true ROI. That could be a massive opportunity for you going into 2026. So that's what I wanted to cover with you guys today. The goal was to show, here's the goal for the year. Let's break that down by how that breaks down by month. Let's figure out the KPI, how many leads we need to generate in order to make that a reality. And let's map out the plan. And hopefully you're really clear on what that plan is and how you can execute. One last example here. This is Paul the Plumber, 12,000 invested, 1,055 leads, $7.75 per lead. Grew from 6 trucks in 2018 to over 16 trucks, now doing over $10 million per year, and confident to get a dialed in digital marketing plan. And I'd love for you to think about what that would mean for you in your company going into the new year. If you really had the right strategy, had the right partner driving behind you to help you hit these goals, to continue to grow the company. If you'd like some help, we'd love the opportunity to connect with you. Like I've said, we will do this completely free of charge. We'll pull up the planning worksheet with you. We'll help you map the goal for the year. We'll help you engineer what the gaps are, what the plan is to bring it into reality. If you want to schedule that, you can go to plumberseo.net/ schedule. That's plumbersco.net/schedule. I'm rooting for you to have an amazing 2026. Thanks so much for the time you invested with me today, and I'll look forward to talking with you again real soon. Thanks, everybody.